It has been quite a long time since I last covered a level with optional objectives in it. The last one would have been R7D1, which that guide was released back on September 7th, 2022. I wonder if I even remember how to properly make a guide for levels that has optional objectives in it. Oh well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Time to jump face first in and remake all my old Rundown 4 guides, starting off with R4A1. Hello everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to the first of many alternate Rundown 4 level guides. We've got a total of 12 different stages we need to talk about before alternate Rundown 5 releases, so let's get right into it. Starting off as always, we're going to be going over your loadout, and this time around, I recommend you bring with you a bio tracker, a mine deployer, a seafoam launcher, and then any sentry of your choice. And now that the auto sentry is back in the game, you have a total of 4 different sentries you could choose from. So have fun, people! When it comes to the bio tracker, I'm recommending this just because it's a classic tool. Honestly, I feel like everybody should always have one bio tracker on the team whenever they drop into any stage of the game, as it's always useful. The information it can provide to you and your team, granted you know how to use it properly, is extremely valuable. And in this stage in particular, there is a fair amount of dense fog in some of the zones, which is going to make it so your sight will be hindered quite a bit. And where your sight fails, the bio tracker will not. As for the mine deployer and the seafoam launcher, we're going to be utilizing these a lot throughout the entirety of the stage. Almost every single alarm door we come up across or uplink terminal when we're dealing with the optional objective, we're going to want to make good use of these. Just simply shutting doors and seafoaming them to reinforce them, and then placing a mine on them or facing towards them to just blow up most, if not every single one of the enemies when the door does break down, will make it so that during these alarms we have to expend a whole lot less ammunition and lose a lot less HP, so we have a whole lot more for other places where we may struggle a little bit more. And last but not least, when it comes to that sentry, it doesn't really matter which one you take. Like I said, you're just bringing this to give you a little bit of extra firepower. I would just recommend that no matter which sentry you take, try not to put too much tool refill into it. Yes, we could utilize it during some of the alarms, or maybe if we wake up a scout or something, or we just wake up a room with a lot of enemies, we could use a sentry to alleviate some of the damage to our resources, but I feel like it's just nowhere near as valuable as the mine deployer or seafoam launcher for this level. So while you could put some tool refill into it, make sure you're putting enough into the mine deployer and seafoam launcher that you'll always have exactly how much you need, if not more, whenever you come across an alarm door. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to collect 6 hard drives, and there's actually a total of 8 of them in the level, and they can be located anywhere throughout Zone 33 to Zone 36. Sometimes you'll have a little bit in every single one of them, and sometimes you'll only have a few in some of the zones. So maybe you'll have 5 of them in one zone, and the other 3 in a second one, and the other 2 will be completely empty. However though, no matter what your splits may look like, you will have to make your way all the way to the very back of the level, aka Zone 35, in order to grab all of them. So as far as I'm aware, you're not going to get lucky and be able to get all of them within the first 2 zones and ignore most of the level. So starting off, you and your team will be located inside Zone 32. In here, not really a whole lot to take note of, just some enemies and some resources, but never any hard drives. So make your way through, deal with all that, and as you make your way to the far northern end, you'll find a security door to Zone 33. This security door is just going to be a full team scan, so group up, do the scan, and you can head right on in. Inside Zone 33, there will be more enemies and resources, as well as potentially some hard drives, so keep an eye out. But be careful, as the first portion of the zone is covered by very dense fog, and sometimes there will be a fair amount of enemies located inside of that fog. So rely on the bio tracker as well as your own ears and make your way through. And as you go further in, you will eventually be able to find some security doors as well as the bulkhead door control. So what you're going to want to do is just make your way through the zone, deal with all the enemies, collect the resources, and grab any hard drives if they are in here. And then once you have everything you need, you're going to want to head to the northeastern side where you'll be able to find the security door to Zone 36. The other 2 security doors in the zones are specifically bulkhead doors, so until we get a bulkhead key, we will not be able to make our way through them. So Zone 36 is the only option. And this security door is going to have a Class 2 alarm tied to it. So as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one location enemies could possibly spawn from, and while we do have a few doors we could utilize, I recommend you leave these 2 open and only shut this one. And you do not need to mine or seafoam this one, as they are going to go through that open door. Since this is only a Class 2 alarm and the enemies are actually spawning pretty far away from us, it's really easy to finish every single one of the sets of scans before the enemies even get into the room. So the only preparation we need to do, aside from the doors, is just simply place a sentry in our room facing down that long corridor towards the open door. That way, once enemies do start making their way in, the sentry will start shooting at them and weakening them. And as soon as we finish the scans, we can go over to the sentry and help it out and deal with all the enemies that spawned in during the alarm. Once it's all finished, pick up the sentry, and then we can head into Zone 36 itself. Which Zone 36 isn't all that big. In there will be some more enemies, as well as more resources, as well as potentially some hard drives, so keep an eye out for them. But more importantly, you'll be able to find your very first bulkhead key somewhere inside the zone, which you are going to need this to progress further on. So once you go throughout all of the zone and you collect everything from in here, you're going to make your way back into Zone 33 and plug your bulkhead key into the door control. This will cause 2 full team scans to appear, one for the main objective and one for the secondary. And at this point, it's time to split up a little bit. Because if you are somebody who's only interested in the main objective portion of this guide and you do not want to see anything about the secondary, you're going to want to jump to the timestamp that's on screen here. That way you could just skip to the point where we get back to here and we continue on with Zone 34 itself. Everybody else though, we're going to be doing the full team scan for the secondary objective and making our way over to the western side of the zone, where we'll be able to find the bulkhead door to Zone 61. Now, before we can open up that bulkhead door and get to work on the secondary objective, we are going to have to deal with the Class 3 alarm that's tied to it, which, as you can see with this map overlay, there are 2 different locations enemies could possibly spawn from. And when it comes to the southern route, I'm going to recommend that you shut this door all the way out here, but you do not need to mine it or seafoam it. It's just simply to delay the enemies. And then this door right here, this one you're going to want to shut, mine, and seafoam, as it's the last line of defense from that direction. As for the eastern doors, it's pretty much the same thing as the very first alarm you just did. Shut this door to ensure enemies will never go through it, and leave this door open to ensure that they will always go through this. Then just simply place your sentry in the room with you facing towards that hallway, and you should be good. Once you're done, activate the alarm and get to work on the scans and deal with the enemies as they come to you. And once you finish the alarm, kill all the enemies and pack up the sentries and whatnot, and you can head right into Zone 61. And upon entering into Zone 61, you'll see that your secondary objective is to find 2 specific terminals and create uplinks with each of them. And these 2 terminals will always be located inside Zone 62 and Zone 63. So when it comes to Zone 61 itself, there will be a decent amount of enemies in here, as well as a few different rooms to go through, one of them being covered by a very dense layer of fog, and there will be resources for you to keep an eye out for. There will be a second bulkhead key, which you'll need to continue on with the rest of the main objective, and there will also be 2 power cells, which you're going to need these as the security doors to Zone 62 and Zone 63 are both unpowered and require a power cell to be plugged into their respective generator in order to unlock them. So go throughout the zone, deal with the enemies, keep an eye out for the resources in the bulkhead key and those power cells, and once you find them, just plug them into the generators as you make your way through the zone. And once you've taken care of everything in here, we can start setting up our defenses, as both of the security doors are going to have Class 3 cluster alarms tied to them. So let's start off with the security door to Zone 62. As you can see with the map overlay, there are 2 different locations enemies can spawn from, the west and the east, and thankfully we have a door in both directions that we can use. So this eastern door, make sure you shut it, mine it, and seafoam it, and this western door right here, shut this one, mine it, and seafoam it, but this door right here, you're going to want to leave open, as we're going to be using that for the security door to Zone 63. As for your sentry, you could place it near either one of the 2 doors. It's up to you exactly which one you want to do. And I would recommend that before you initiate this alarm, first of all, find some fog repellers, as this entire room is covered by a dense layer of fog. And second off, when you initiate the alarm, once you finish that first full team scan, I recommend that the biotracker person obviously make sure you tag enemies, that way you know which direction they spawn from first. And the person with the seafoam launcher, if you want to, run over to that direction quickly and try to re-seafoam the door over and over again, or at least for a little bit of the alarm, just to buy your teammates a little bit more time. It'll be a close call if you can actually make it to it, as the doors are so far away from you, but if you get lucky, you'll be able to do it, and you'll be able to keep enemies out until your teammates finish every single one of the scans. Either way though, once you have finished this alarm and everything is dead, pack up your tools and you can head into Zone 62. And inside Zone 62, there will be a fair amount of enemies, a singular scout patrolling about, some more resources for you to collect, and 3 different terminals, one of which is going to be the one you need for the uplink. The thing is though, these terminals are all far apart from each other, which means that the setup for the uplink itself is going to change depending on which one you get. So let's take a look at each one of them one by one, starting off with this one right here. If you have this terminal, you've got a pretty easy time, because even though you're surrounded by rooms, there's only one possible spawn location for the enemies. Keep in mind, uplink enemies cannot spawn outside the zone you're currently in, so they cannot spawn down from the south. So there's only one location and 2 doors they have to go through to get to you. So shut the outer one, but do not mine or seafoam it, and then the one that's tied directly to your room, shut that one, mine it, and C-foam it. And then while you work on the uplink, you could re-C-foam the door a little bit. That way your person on the terminal can finish all 3 of the codes of the uplinks before enemies even step foot into the room. If you got the one that's a bit further in though, specifically the one in the top left corner, your map overlay is going to look like this. And even though, again, you have a fair amount of rooms connected to you, there's only one possible spawn location for the enemies, and they'll always go through these 2 doors to get to you and your team. So the one that's further away from you, just simply shut that door to buy yourself some time, and the one that's tied directly to your room, shut it, mine it, and C-foam, and pretty much the same thing as the first one. Re-C-foam the door a little bit if you want to, and you should be good. But if you get the third terminal, which is the one that I'm currently staying right next to in the map overlay, you're going to be setting up sort of like this. One person is going to be in that room actually working on the uplink, and the other 3 people are going to be standing in the room connected to it. And the reason for that is just because if we shut mine and C-foam that door and all 4 of us are next to that terminal, that mine is actually pretty close to us and could potentially kill us if we're not careful. So it's better to have the people stand outside of the room. That way not only does it force the spawns back a bit, but also so you can actually shut mine and C-foam this door right here and keep re-C-foaming this. And when the mine goes off, there's practically no chance of anybody on the team blowing up. And that's how you would set up for every single one of these uplinks. So depending on which one you have, set up according to how I showed you. And once you're good, get that show on the road, deal with the uplink, deal with the enemies. And once that is completely finished, you can backtrack your way out of the zone and go to zone 61 and then make your way to the southwest corner where you'll find the security door to zone 63. Which, like I mentioned earlier, this is also going to have a class C cluster alarm tied to it, which, as you can see, there's only one possible spawn location for the enemies, and even though there normally would be 2 doors we could utilize, there's a good chance that this door right here is broken down, which isn't too big of a deal. We still have this door here, so we're going to shut this door, mine it, and C-foam it. And just like before, while working on the scans, we can re-C-foam the door a little bit just to buy some extra time and maybe place our sentry down on the inside of the room with us facing towards it if we want to, and we could just get to work on the scans. Once you finish this alarm, you can open up the security door and head into zone 63. And zone 63 is basically the same thing as zone 62. There'll be a single scout patrolling about in one of the rooms, some enemies for you to deal with, more resources for you to collect, and there's a total of 3 different terminals throughout the entire zone. Each one being in different rooms, so the setup is different between each of these uplinks, depending on which one you actually have. So let's take a look at a few more map overlays. Man, I feel like I've been showing off a lot of them for this, and this is only A1. But if you got the terminal that's all the way over in that western room, specifically room E, your map overlay looks like this, which there's only 2 different locations enemies can spawn from and a few different doors we can use. These 3 doors in particular, you're going to want to shut, but you do not need to mine or C-foam them. But these 2 doors that are directly tied to your room, make sure both of them are shut, mined, and C-foamed, or at least mined, and then person with the bio-tracker tag enemies during the uplink. That way the person with the C-foam launcher knows which direction they are coming from, as sometimes it only takes one of these 2 routes, and you can run over to that door and C-foam it and keep enemies out for a bit longer. If you have the terminal that's in the middle of the zone though, your map overlay is going to look like this, which again, 2 different possible spawn locations for enemies, and more often than not, they're going to go through this door right here to ultimately get into your room, but there is a chance that sometimes it'll be a bit weird and they'll take the other way. So I would recommend that every single door I've labeled, you shut, but you do not mine or C-foam. But these 2 doors in particular, place mines on them, and then same thing like before, don't C-foam them yet, just simply wait until you know which route they're taking to get to you, that way you can conserve some tool refill, and then quickly the person with the C-foam launcher run over to that direction and C-foam it. And last but not least, if you got the terminal that's in the southern room all the way down here, your map overlay is going to look like this, which is a whole lot simpler, because even though there are still 2 spawn locations for enemies, there's only 1 door that leads directly into your room. So these 2 doors, shut them, but do not mine them or C-foam them. But this door right here, shut it, mine it, and C-foam it. And this is the door you're going to re-C-foam a little bit during the uplink. That way your person on the terminal can get every single one of the codes done before enemies even step foot into the room. Once you're good to go, activate the uplink, do the full team scan, and get to work on the uplink as well as the enemies. And once you finish it completely, your secondary objective is finalized. There's nothing left to it. So all you have to do is make your way back out of the zone, go into zone 33 where the bulkhead door control is, plug your bulkhead key into it, and that will unlock the security door to zone 34, and we can now continue on with the rest of the main objective. Alrighty, so continuing on with the rest of the main objective. Also, welcome back to those of you who jumped ahead to this portion of the guide. So we are going into zone 34, but before we can actually open up the security door, we're going to have to deal with the class 2 alarm that's tied to it, which, as you can see with the map overlay, there are a few different locations enemies could potentially spawn from. Although this spawn location right here is invalid if you did not open up the bulkhead door to the secondary objective. So those of you who are doing a main only run, you don't have to worry about enemies appearing from that area. However, there are a few other small locations that we need to take care of. So just like before, we're going to be using a little bit of a funnel strategy. This door right here, you're going to shut, but you do not need to mine it or seafoam it. This door you're going to leave open, so any enemies from the south will go in through there, and you'll have your sentry in the corner of that hallway facing towards the door, just like you did before. And when it comes to the eastern enemies, we're just going to simply shut these 3 doors and place a mine on every single one of them. We're not going to seafoam them, as that extra reinforcement isn't really needed since it is a class 2 alarm. And with that, your setup is good. Activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and once you're done, deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive. Once you've taken care of all that, you can open up the security door and head into zone 34. And in there, you're going to be able to find a few more hard drives, or you potentially will be able to, depending on your RNG and where they spawned at. You'll be able to find some enemies as well as a few more resources to resupply with. So go throughout the zone, deal with the enemies, and grab the resources and the hard drives if they are in here. And once you've gotten everything from the zone, you can head to the far northern end where you'll find the security door to zone 35. This security door is going to have a class 3 alarm, so one last time, let's take a look at a map overlay. As you can see, there's only one location enemies could possibly spawn from, but there are 3 different routes they could take to get to you and your team, depending on which one of the initial doors they break down first. So I would recommend that all of the doors in the zone, just simply shut every single one of them, and then when it comes to the 3 doors that are tied directly to your room, so these 3 in particular, make sure that not only are they shut, but you place a mine on every single one of them. And you don't need to seafoam quite yet, because you could just simply activate the alarm, get to work on the first full team scan, and then BioTracker, you can tag the enemies, that way you know which route they're taking, and the person with the seafoam launcher can quickly run over to the door and fully reinforce it before the enemies get to it and start breaking it down. Once this alarm is finished, you'll be able to head into zone 35, which is the final zone of the level. In here, there will be a few more enemies as well as resources, but more importantly, there will be the last of the hard drives you will need to collect. So go throughout the zone and just look around for them, and as soon as you collect all 6 that you need, your main objective is completed. The extraction scan will appear all the way back at the beginning of the level inside zone 32, so all you have to do is turn around and backtrack your way through the level. Once you get all the way there, you can hop into the extraction scan. This is a silent scan that finishes pretty quickly, so you don't have to worry about holding out on it. And once you get the scan all the way up to 100%, you are done and you have completed alternate R4A1. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R4A1 gave me quite a shock when I played through it the first time with my group, as many of the zones were quite a bit different compared to the original. And while there were a fair amount of changes throughout Alternate Rundown 1, 2, and 3, very few of those new levels surprised me as nearly as much as this one did. And to think, this is only the first level of the rundown. We still have 11 more to go through. It makes me wonder how many more changes I'll notice the further we make our way down. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast. Until next time, have fun traveling further into the depths of the rundown. Hopefully you'll make it out in 1 or at least 2 pieces, and I will see you all in the next video.